Young and Restless next week. Mariah bombshell, Nick exits rehab and shock nuptials. Young and the Restless spoilers for the week of August 3rd are going to see Mariah Copeland, Cameron Grimes, back home to Genoa City, and it is a big shocker for somebody. Plus, Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, is out of rehab before he should be, and there's going to be a surprise wedding. Now first, let's get into what is going on with Nick and his rehab and how he is tied to this surprise wedding. First, we're going to talk about Nikki Newman, Melody Thomas Scott, and Victor Newman, Eric Braeden. So, at the end of this week on Young and the Restless, Nikki and Victor are hanging out at the GCAC, and Nikki is enjoying how wonderful it is to see again. Even the fruit on her plate has her happy. It's so colorful. She and Victor just got back from visiting Nick in rehab. Now, mind you, family is not supposed to show up right when somebody goes into rehab. Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, even mentioned that when she told Noah Newman, Lucas Adams, that Nick had checked himself into rehab. And you could tell that Sharon didn't like that Nikki and Victor pushed forward with this visit because it's outside of the process. And Nikki knows that. Bottom line, that could negatively impact Nick's process of staying clean. So, Nikki and Victor talked about how broken that Nick seemed when they saw him. And both Nikki and Victor are worried about their son. But I guess they're not worried enough to follow the rules of rehab, though. And then Nikki asks where she and Victor stand now that her vision is back. So, he wants to focus on the positive things like Nikki regaining her sight and Nick's recovery process. But Nikki can't live with the uncertainty. She doesn't want to ignore what broke up her and Victor, and he wants Nikki back home for good. But Victor doesn't want to talk about Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman. And if you remember, Victor told Nikki that the only path to them reuniting was if she cut Jack out of her life. But now it looks like Victor's had some sort of epiphany. And he tells Nikki he knows he's got to accept Jack is her friend. Of course, Victor calls Jack a loser when he says it, but it's still better overall. And then Nikki says she's willing to let go of what Victor did to Jack, but only if Victor can let go of the night Jack saved her. You know, the whole night of debauchery thing that Victor's always on about. So he tells Nikki that his love for her is stronger than his hate for Jack. And then Victor says, let's go home. So, next week on Young and the Restless, spoilers have Victor slipping Nikki's ring back onto her finger, and Victor proposes. He asks if Nikki will marry him again. And of course, since Victor's got a stranglehold on her heart, we will see Nikki tell him yes. She says, I will marry you 1,000 times over. I mean, really not 1,000. This is maybe number 6. I don't know how many times they've been married off the top of my head. So, those two are the surprise wedding that we're going to be getting. And it sounds like it won't be too long before Victor and Nikki renew their vows, possibly next week. Unfortunately, it looks like Nick is home from rehab because he asks his mom if she's ready to be a bride again. And what's wild about that is when he says that Nikki is in the same blouse as she was wearing on Friday's episode at the GCAC on her outing with Victor. So, is Nick just walking out of rehab the same day that Nikki and Victor came to visit? If so, that is not a good sign for him beating this addiction. Rehab is supposed to last for weeks without a break. Sharon was worried about Nick, and she might have more cause to worry soon. But maybe he checked out to see Victor and Nikki renew their vows, and then Nick will go back soon, even though that's also against the rules. But also, despite the wedding distraction, Victor has more fish to fry. He is quite upset at Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, and Matt Clark, Roger Howarth, by the end of this week and again going into next week. Phyllis did the deed with Matt, but she woke up alone. He had gone to see Sienna to ask her a favor. So, while Matt's at the shadow room, Phyllis is freaking out, thinking that Matt had relations and then left town. So, she's calling, texting, leaving an insane voicemail. Typical stuff from Phyllis. But no, Matt didn't leave Genoa City. Instead, he went to ask Sienna if she would speak to the Newmans on his behalf and basically get Victor, Noah, and the others to just leave him alone. And Sienna doesn't think they'll listen, but she is willing to speak to them on Matt's behalf. And then he goes to find Phyllis to reassure her that he is making every effort to stay in town to be with her, and that he went to see Sienna for help with that. And Matt tells Phyllis what he asks Sienna to do. But Phyllis warns Matt not to trust anybody, not even his ex. And Phyllis tells Matt, "Please don't listen to the nasty voicemail I left." And then he tells Phyllis he's not leaving. He even left his bag under her bed. Not only that, but Matt faces off with Victor by the end of the week. Says he's not working for him. He's not leaving town, and he's going to stay with Phyllis. And of course, Victor is enraged. There's a shocker next week for Phyllis related to her ex. Danny Romalotti, Michael Damian, and Christine Blair Romalotti Lurley-Bell, his wife, are up at the Shadow Room. And if you recall, he really liked the club, and he helped out behind the bar when staff was short. That was the same night that he told people he's tired of touring. So, next week's Young and the Restless spoilers have him and his wife up at Shadow Room. And he tells his wife he likes it there. And she says she knows, but won't that interfere with his regular job? He asks her, "What if this was my regular job?" She asks if he's going viral, and he says, "No, a rock club manager." Then he tells her, "Meet the new man in charge." So, it looks like he is going to be managing the club for Sienna Bacall, Tamara Braun, and Noah. And I guess that means more of him and his wife on Young and the Restless, at least until the new head writers tap in. And then we'll see what happens. I'm sure that Phyllis won't miss a chance to bring Matt up to the Shadow Room to rub her relationship in her ex's face. But I think he and his wife will be absolutely horrified to see who Phyllis has in her bed. Maybe not too surprised, though, given her track record with the men she chooses. I mean, he was a good one. Next week. Mariah Bombshell, Nick exits rehab and shock nuptials. The week ahead in the Young and the Restless promises explosive twists, emotional confrontations, and one wedding that nobody in Genoa City sees coming. Long-buried secrets threaten to surface. Families find themselves divided, and unexpected alliances begin to form as everyone struggles to stay one step ahead of the truth. If the latest whispers prove accurate, fans are in for a roller coaster packed with heartbreak, redemption, and one jaw-dropping finale that could change multiple lives forever. Mariah drops a bombshell. Mariah has spent weeks carrying a burden that's been slowly tearing her apart. Around Tessa, she's tried to maintain a brave face, insisting everything is fine. But her increasingly anxious behavior has raised more questions than answers. Next week, the pressure becomes unbearable. Unable to keep the truth hidden any longer, Mariah finally reveals a shocking confession that leaves Tessa completely speechless. While details remain tightly guarded, the revelation appears significant enough to shake the foundation of their relationship. Was Mariah protecting someone? Did she make a devastating mistake? Or has she discovered a secret involving another member of the Newman or Abbott families? Whatever the answer, the emotional fallout is immediate. Tessa struggles to process what she's hearing, while Mariah fears that honesty may cost her everything she's fought so hard to build. Their heartfelt conversation becomes one of the week's emotional highlights, reminding viewers why the couple has become one of the show's strongest partnerships. Yet love alone may not be enough to overcome what's coming. Nick returns from rehab. After taking time away to focus on healing and recovery, Nick finally prepares to leave rehab. His return marks a major turning point, but life in Genoa City hasn't stood still during his absence. Family tensions have escalated, business rivalries have intensified, old enemies have gained new leverage. Nick quickly realizes that stepping back into everyday life won't be nearly as easy as walking out the rehab doors. Victor welcomes his son home, but immediately begins pushing him toward difficult family responsibilities. Nikki is relieved to have Nick back, yet she remains cautious, hoping he won't become overwhelmed by the endless Newman drama. Meanwhile, Sharon's reaction proves especially emotional. The pair share several heartfelt scenes as they discuss second chances, forgiveness, and the difficult road ahead. Whether romance is back on the table remains uncertain, but the chemistry between them is impossible to ignore. Victor makes another bold move. It wouldn't be a week in Genoa City without Victor Newman making strategic plays. As Nick settles back into town, Victor is already several moves ahead, quietly manipulating events behind the scenes. His latest business strategy threatens multiple rivals simultaneously, forcing Jack, Billy, and Adam to reconsider their own positions. Victor insists every decision is for the protection of the Newman legacy. Not everyone believes him. Several family members begin questioning whether Victor's relentless pursuit of control is creating more problems than it's solving. Those disagreements could eventually split the family once again. Sharon faces difficult questions. While Nick adjusts to his new reality, Sharon finds herself confronting painful memories she's tried to leave behind. Friends encourage her to focus on the future, but unresolved emotions continue pulling her backward. When an unexpected conversation forces Sharon to reevaluate several recent choices, she begins wondering whether she's been avoiding an uncomfortable truth. Could Nick's return inspire a fresh start, or will old wounds reopen before they have a chance to heal? Either way, Sharon's emotional journey becomes one of the week's most compelling storylines. Summer and Kyle reach another crossroads. Elsewhere, Summer and Kyle continue struggling with trust issues that refuse to disappear. Although both insist they're trying to move forward, outside influences keep complicating matters. Misunderstandings quickly snowball into fresh arguments, leaving friends wondering whether the relationship has finally reached its breaking point. Claire's growing presence only adds another layer of uncertainty. Even the smallest interaction begins fueling speculation about where everyone's loyalties truly lie. By week's end, one surprising decision may permanently reshape several relationships. Adam finds himself cornered. Adam believes he can outmaneuver everyone around him, but next week proves that even the most carefully crafted plans can unravel. Unexpected information lands in the wrong hands, placing Adam in an increasingly vulnerable position. Rather than admitting defeat, he doubles down. Unfortunately, that strategy only creates even greater complications. Chelsea grows concerned that Adam's stubborn determination could undo months of progress, while Victor expects absolute loyalty regardless of the consequences. Adam soon realizes pleasing everyone may be impossible. A wedding nobody expected. The biggest surprise of the week arrives with a wedding announcement that sends shockwaves throughout Genoa City. Guests receive invitations with almost no warning. Rumors spread rapidly. Speculation reaches a fever pitch before the ceremony even begins. Some believe the marriage is motivated entirely by love. Others suspect hidden agendas, business advantages, or desperate attempts to protect family secrets. Regardless of the reason, the ceremony becomes one of the week's most talked about events. Several familiar faces react with disbelief, while others quietly celebrate the unexpected union. Of course, no Genoa City wedding ever proceeds without at least one dramatic interruption. As vows are exchanged, an unforeseen development threatens to overshadow the celebration, leaving everyone wondering whether the newlyweds will actually enjoy their happy ending. Secrets continue to surface. Throughout the week, multiple characters discover that the truth rarely stays buried forever. Private conversations are overheard. Suspicious behavior attracts unwanted attention. Long-hidden connections begin emerging one by one. Each revelation creates ripple effects across several families, ensuring that no one escapes untouched. Friendships face enormous strain. Romances are tested. Business partnerships become increasingly unstable.